In video games across the world, whether you're playing Overwatch or League of Legends, you're going to run into your fair share of toxic players that are going to flame you heavily if you perform very horribly. For example, if you're playing Twisted Fate and ARAMs and you run it down 0-10 and all your teammates are going to be calling you the N-word and all types of racial slurs while you're trying to run it down and trying to hit your gold card on the enemy Soraka. But you're basically going to get flamed. Your teammates are probably going to get chat restricted and you're probably going to queue them next because you can never end on a loss. But the OSU community in particular is not a victim that can be accepted from this. And what happened basically a couple hours ago, it might be a day, I think it was like 17 hours ago, basically a top player by the name of Ivaxa, which is a player that you might have heard of. He's out here choking 1500s on Deceit DT. He's out here single tapping stream maps, single tapping Euphoria, single tapping 400 BPM. Like, I don't know how he does it. He's basically a prodigy that can rival Emmerich and the Kali Bed and all the top players out there. He's a very good contender for becoming #1 in the OSU game community. And there was a bit of drama that was dug up on him. I saw Stu's video on this and also saw the Reddit post. But he was basically trying to complete a Guinness Book of World Records speed run. He's out here trying to speed run saying the N-word. He's trying to see how fast he can say the N-word in like 1 minute. And he basically completed this challenge doing the N-word in about 227 times. I don't know how long. I'm assuming it was like a 5-minute speed run. He is out here speed running the entire N-word speed run. Like, he basically completed it. He's probably #1 on that leaderboard right there. He's not just getting leaderboards on Deceit. He's also getting leaderboards in the Guinness Book of World Records for saying the N-word the fastest time in the entire world. I don't really know what like the whole context here is, but it's basically like people are pissing each other off, trying to at everyone each other, and then Ivaxa kind of got mad of it, I guess. Like, he kind of got like those pings and was like, dude, what the hell? And he spammed everyone F N-words at everyone F, and he spammed this like 227 times. And this is absolutely crazy. Nobody else is out here doing this type of crazy N-word spree like Ivaxa is right here, and a lot of people are pretty mad at him. Polish community's out here probably getting a bit of their support because Ivaxa is the king of Poland in terms of OSU, but a lot of people out here losing respect for Ivaxa and are just pretty pissed and pretty mad at him for it. I suppose that he said this because he thought it was really funny, and he's like a 14-year-old kid, so he doesn't really have those boundaries and limits understood yet that people can get offended with the N-word. Maybe he doesn't care, but he just probably thought it was funny. And I just want to give my thoughts on it personally. So when I first saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I busted out laughing, bro, because I thought this was completely absurd. Because when I saw this, I was like, he said this 227 times? Like, it's kind of like that meme where you get stabbed like 39 times in a row or something. He's like, 39 stab wounds, and I'm reading this like 227 N-words. Like, I don't even know, bro. Like, I just thought it was completely funny and absurd right here when I was reading that text, and also just watching Stu's video. I was just busting out laughing. But of course, this situation here, like, a lot of people will be like, okay, that's a bit insensitive of you, isn't that? Because like, he's out here saying the N-word so much. All the black people out here are going to get quite offended from that, and it's just a pretty offensive thing to do in general, right? He's just saying F N-words like 227 times in a row, completing the Guinness Book of World Records speed run. A lot of people would get mad at it. Obviously, of course, it completely makes sense. I understand it. But besides that topic, OSU in general, I feel like this is something that's just highlighted for Ivaxa in particular, but I feel like there's just a lot of other OSU players out here that are also saying N-word, probably as much of as Ivaxa did here, or other OSU players, because the OSU community is not exactly the most pure-hearted community out there, right? You've got your fair share of people trying to suss out 13-year-olds and people out here trying to say N-word all the time. Like, it's not exactly the most angelic community out here. And I feel like this situation in general is just extremely highlighted for Ivaxa in particular, just because he is a top player, because there's a lot of other OSU players out here doing the same exact thing, saying N-word like a billion times in a row. If you don't believe me, you just gotta look around. Maybe join the OSU game Discord server, join some of your friends server, and they're gonna be seeing N-word in like every chat. But basically, a lot of OSU players are out here saying N-word as well, but Ivaxa is out here getting highlighted just because he's a top player in that regard, and I just wanted to point out that observation right there. And also, it seems like this is a bit of a cultural thing. So of course, in America, I do live in America, so I'm understanding of this cultural boundary, but Americans would get very offended at the N-word because America is the place where N-word offends the most people, since historically N-word came from America importing slaves from Africa and then getting the slaves, calling them N-words and just whipping them with a whip and shit. Like, that's what happened until like Abraham Lincoln freed all the slaves in 1865, which lessened some tensions for racism for a bit. But those deep-rooted tensions in terms of that racism for the N-word still continues on today, which is why people still get offended at it, even though that historic event happened like a couple hundred years ago. So for Europeans, they wouldn't exactly understand it as much since they didn't have that event that Americans had, where we got the slaves from Africa, and then there was a bit of social tensions and racial tensions between white people and black people in America. Besides that topic, I feel like it's just a bit of a cultural thing as well, since I think in Eastern Europe, Ivaxa isn't Poland, I think the N-word is more accepted there instead of America, because they didn't have that historical tension like Americans had with black people and white people being against each other like slaves and then plantation owners. Like that sort of ordeal didn't really exactly happen in Eastern Europe. It was more of an American thing. So I'm assuming that the Europeans here, they don't really give as much power to the N-word, don't really give a fuck as much about it. So I feel like they will just say more because of that. Of course, this doesn't excuse him saying N-word like all the time. Like I really hope he grows out of it. I know Ivaxa is still a really young person, so like 14 years old, and people around that age, I know I was, they would have this really edgy humor and not really care as much about other people, and they would be more inclined to think the N-word is funny. Like they go out in public and then call everyone like an N-word, and they would be laughing their ass off, but then other people would be like, okay, this guy's a weirdo. I hope he grows out of it. I'm not really trying to excuse him, I'm just trying to give my observation on like why he might have even said it. But besides that drama right there, I also want to give my own perspective on the N-word in general, just the societal aspect around it, like people saying it nowadays. And I might get canceled or called racist about it, but I don't really care. I just want to give my mind and just speak my mind about this. But I feel like the N-word, so obviously in Ivaxa's case, it's not exactly the most angelic usage of the N-word, or I mean, you can't really say any usage of N-words is angelic, but he was basically saying it in a derogatory manner. He was saying fuck N-words and all of that shit like 227 times in a row. But I feel like in general, if you even just say N-word like out of context, like you're just trying to like talk about the N-word in general, so like I'm just gonna give like a Joe Rogan clip right here.
But you can't even say it. You can't, not even calling someone it, not calling a person a nigger, but saying the word, like me saying it right now. You're like,
you can't say it.
How come you can't say it?
He just did.
It's over. It's racist.
No, it's. I think it's.
They
racist
have one
to
word.
call someone.
They have a word.
Sure.
So Joe Rogan's basically saying in this clip that the N-word is just so feared and powerful. It's kind of like Voldemort's name, or like in Harry Potter, you can't even say Voldemort or else you like die or some shit. Like in America, if you try to say like N-word, even though you're not even saying it in like a racial context, you're just like trying to say the word to like say an example or like give a point, like just like talk about the N-word in general, then you would be like, okay, that is racist.
You can't say it.
How come you can't say it?
He just did.
It's racist. It's racist.
No.
Even though they didn't even say it in that racist manner, they didn't even say like I hate all N-words. They just said the N-word right there. Like in Joe Rogan's case, like people are gonna watch Joe Rogan's like clip right here and think he's racist, but he's just trying to give a point about it. And I feel like in general, the N-word just has a lot of power, and a lot of people fear it in America in particular. And it's also because like people just say N-word instead of saying like the actual word, because we're giving that substitute instead of the actual word. And I'm not really trying to give like much comment about it or like say we should change that. I feel like it's just like my observation about the N-word in general, and a lot of people just fear it, right? Which might give a bit more of a backlash from the OC community on Ivaxa's case of saying the N-word so much in here in this particular aspect. And besides that, I swear that the N-word offends white people more than black people. So I know this is like a really obnoxious point, like this is a hot take, but just from my experience of black people throughout my years when I was growing up in middle school and high school and college, like I've had a lot of black friends. I've had friends of all types of races, but all the black friends that I talk to, like sometimes like I would ask them what's their opinion about the N-word, and they'll be like, I don't really care if you say the N-word, or they're probably gonna think it's really funny, because I feel like black people just don't really care as much anymore nowadays of if you say like the N-word. Maybe it's different in other places, but for me, when I was growing up, black people didn't really care if you said the N-word or not. And I swear that white people in comparison get more offended if you use the N-word instead. I kind of just wanted to point out that clownish observation as well. Like I feel like a lot of people just get offended by the N-word even though they're not even the racial group that it would usually be targeted at, and I just think that's kind of crazy. I'm not really trying to say anything about it. I'm just like trying to point out that observation from my own life experiences. But besides that random yap about the N-word in general, like I'm just trying to give my perspective on it. You know, I don't really care if you guys personally like call me an N-word, or if you guys call me a chink in terms of that racial aspect. Like I don't really care. I'll probably think it's funny, but I just wanted to give my commentary about like just the N-word usage in general. I don't really care if people use it, but I feel like a lot of people just give it way too much power and just fear the word. But besides that, I just want to circumvent that. I'm not trying to excuse Ivaxa's behavior here. Like, of course, he's saying N-word like that a lot of times. I know I'm repeating myself, but I just wanted to say that again in case some of you guys trying to take this clip out of context and think that I'm out here trying to support the N-word or something. But that's pretty much all I want to say in this video, and I'll see y'all.